All right, well, big fail reshooting my first video because there was some information that was leaked in the initial shot. So yeah, essentially I'm just reviewing videos of interesting individuals, for the lack of a better word, to essentially identify if they're crazy. I don't know, that's probably not the right word that a licensed psychiatrist should use, but crazy, or if they have an actual like psychiatric disorder. So the first video that I'm gonna do is this is a random video. It's about another Trump shooter. So we have this guy Cole Allen. That's actually not the Cole Allen that we're talking about. This is the Cole Allen that we're talking about. So he's this guy that, attempted to shoot up uh dinner thing, um, where Trump was at and Vance and like a bunch of other like political people, I guess. So yeah, so random guy somehow gets in there and like I think he fired some shots or something. I don't know the full details. Um, but trying to figure out, is this guy just some regular dude who ended up getting brainwashed, or does he have some underlying like psychiatric disorders? We don't actually have that much information on him. They figured out where he like lives, obviously, like his picture and stuff like that. So it looks like Trump. Um, where was the stuff? Okay, so this is kind of just the map or the schematics of the area, um, of the White House Correspondents Association annual dinner. I guess that's what it was. So okay, this is just a bunch of like details on what happened, but this is obviously what the guy looks like. So yeah, so this is a 31-year-old teacher and engineer from Torrance, California. Uh, okay, as the man suspected of opening fire. I don't understand how he's suspected of opening fire when he's like, how's he still a suspect? Like they clearly, saw that it was him and like tackled him to the ground. Anyways, so he worked as part-time teacher at C2 Education and a tutoring service. Uh, received Teacher of the Month. So in general, somebody who has a psychiatric issue probably isn't going to get Teacher of the Month or sort of like an accolade of something of that, you know, manner. Um, so like even from yeah, so even like his students were saying that, he's a smart guy. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, you can have some people that are that have psychiatric disorders that can also, just because you have a psychiatric disorder doesn't mean like you can't be not smart or something. So, um, this doesn't necessarily rule out anything, but this right here is a huge hint that people with really severe psychiatric disorders and illnesses, they can't succeed that much to the point where they, outcompete other people, right? There is an asterisk to that, like somebody who's a high functioning autistic person, since they're so, you know, uh so strict with rules. Um, they will follow all the rules. They'll do everything by the book. So it's a possibility that, somebody like that can get Teacher of the Month, but somebody who's like psychotic or bipolar, very unlikely. Actually, somebody that's bipolar can also get this, because somebody who's bipolar, they'll have obviously phases of their life where they're normal. So, and not manic. So that is also a possibility, but still not enough information. So White House is calling a manifesto minutes before the incident took place at the Hilton Hotel. So this right here already tells you that like something else might be going on here. Whenever a manifesto is usually written, um, that tells me it's probably not like a psychiatric disorder. Somebody's like, this is more of like kind of like being really brainwashed into something. Um, the reason I say that is because somebody who might have, a psychiatric disorder like schizophrenia, bipolar, something that make kind of like breaks their brain essentially. Their brain's like broken, so they can't go through the point of plotting things specifically, to the point where they write a manifesto with the intent of them acting on something, because when somebody's psychotic or crazy, there's so much stuff happening in their head, like voices and all this stuff, that they can't stay linear in terms of processing and plotting things. So this is telling me that this person probably wasn't like, schizophrenic or anything like that. Just because, he wrote like kind of a manifesto there. The White House officials also said the Secret Service and Montgomery County Police spoke with Allen's sister. In that interview, Allen's sister said that her brother had a tendency to make radical statements. Um, this doesn't rule out a psychiatric disorder versus somebody just being extremely brainwashed and crazy, because people who can have like episodes of mania psychosis, sometimes they do become very radicalized too. Um, his rhetoric constantly referenced a plan to do something to fix the issues with today's world. She also said he attended a No Kings protest in California and was part of a group called the Wide Awakes, a network of activists dedicated to social justice issues that bears the same name as the 1860s abolitionist youth movement. Um, he donated $25 to fundraising platform AgBlue that was earmarked for Kamala Harris's presidential thing. All right, so I mean, it sounds like he's pretty relatively like high functioning, and um he can work, he can like he's not getting kicked out of these social things that he's a part of. Or at least we don't know. We don't know if he got kicked out of anything. Um but usually when somebody has a underlying psychiatric disorders that are relatively severe, they can't stay in stuff. Like they can't stay in jobs, they can't stay in school, because their psychiatric disorders impede them from doing that. And by psychiatric disorders, I'm talking about very severe ones like schizophrenia and severe bipolar disorder. Um, so let me see. Okay, what we know about the suspect. Torrance, C2 education. So yeah, it really looks like there is not much that we know. Okay, so it is clear based upon what we know so far that this individual was intent on doing as much harm and as much damage as he could. So yeah, he went in there with the plan to just like, I'm assuming, shooting everyone or something. Uh, he owned a couple of guns. He lived in multiple residencies in Los Angeles area from November 2010 to March 2026. I think he's living with his family right now too. Um, okay, mechanical engineering. That is so interestingly enough. Engineers, mechanical engineers, they are anybody kind of in the engineering field. They are at a higher risk of developing things like schizophrenia. So um, that is a possibility based off of that. So I'm kind of 50-50. So let's see if we can see any like videos. I think there is a video here of him. So this is a video of him in 2017. So to find out if somebody's like, if somebody has, when we do psychiatric evaluations, honestly, the thing that tells us the most information is how they present themselves, like how they talk, what they're saying, things like that. Just kind of the mannerisms give us so much information. So this right here is probably gonna tell me the most information. If this guy has a psychiatric disorder, specifically at that point in time. So this is obviously like 2017. Um, a lot of things could have happened since then. That's like almost 10 years ago. So let's see what he was like here.
College student Cole Allen developed a prototype for a wheelchair emergency brake.
The wheelchair brakes tend to lock the wheels, but don't actually lock the chair to the ground. The idea with this is to prevent it from moving at all.
Recent aging.
So I don't know. In 2017, he seems like a pretty normal guy. Maybe like a little quirky. Maybe not, like a super social guy that like goes to all the parties and stuff, obviously, but he's dressed well, he's talking appropriately, he's not saying any weird things. Um, I would say, yeah, he's a relatively normal guy. If any like psychiatric thing that I would even start to consider, maybe something like being on the spectrum. Like I said, maybe he might be, somebody, he's in engineering. Um, he is probably very like structured, and he needs things a certain way, or possibly. Um, that's what I would say. And that's kind of a stretch. I'm not getting any sense of like this guy's psychotic. There's a possibility that I don't know if he uses any substances or anything like that. there's a possibility that he could maybe have had like, so people that are in engineering, they tend to, a lot of them tend to smoke marijuana, and marijuana is unfortunately does increase your risk of developing schizophrenia. So another possibility is he could have, you know, that could have eventually like gotten to the point where he's using a lot and his brain couldn't essentially handle it anymore. And so he could have started getting like first break psychosis or something like that. Um, and as a result, he may have been more um perseverative is the word that we like to use in psychiatry. Perseverative on these like, oh yeah, like anti, you know, Republican or whatever. I don't know what kind of spiels he was going on about, but he could have just been more hyper focused and hyper fixated on these kinds of things, anti political stuff, as a result of psychosis. I'm not saying that's the case of what happened here. I have no information. Like, if I knew if they got like a drug screen, if they kind of knew his medical history in that sense, that would give you information as to that part of the story and if that's a possibility. Um, but otherwise, I don't think that's what happened. Um, I think this guy was just probably like brainwashed or something. I mean, not brainwashed, but I think he was just a normal guy that he was just like so into those things, and like he was probably on Reddit a lot. He probably like he surrounded himself with these people that were championing certain ideals, and that was kind of, it sounds like that was kind of his life. And so he molded everything that, like, that was his entire being, and he wanted to be the champion of these people. So he went out and did that. So I don't know. If I were to say, I wouldn't say this is a psychiatric thing. I would say this is um, probably more of a just, this is just some guy that was way too far into the weeds. I guess that's what you're that's the that's how you say it. He was just way in too deep into kind of like the belief system that he was all about. So yeah, maybe we're gonna find more information. I mean, if something crazy happens and like I'll, kind of go over this again. But for now I'm gonna say this guy was just probably just a little crazy. I'm not like he didn't have like a psychiatric disorder. I don't like to say people with psychiatric disorders are crazy. This is like an actual brain issue that they sort of have no control of. But this guy probably a little crazy. So, all right, that was it for today. Thank you for watching my first video.